we are going to be getting into private lending. So we're going to go through using promissory notes, using mortgages. What's the difference between a trust deed and a mortgage and a promissory note, when to use one over the other and then use them together, some things that you should do on every single private money lending deal. So I want to go over all that stuff dealing with private money lending today. So with that being said, before we hopped on here today, I pulled up a few different documents and a few different articles. So I'm going to share a couple different things with you all today. We'll get into using a direction of investment form if you have a self-directed IRA, if the money's coming from there, and whatnot. All right, so we're talking money today, promissory notes, mortgages, private money lending. So let me start with, okay, so what is a mortgage? So a mortgage is a document that gives the lender a security interest in the property until the note is paid in full. So whether you have a deed of trust or a mortgage, they both serve to assure that a loan is repaid either to a lender or an individual person. A mortgage only involves two parties, the borrower and the lender. A deed of trust adds an additional party, a trustee, who holds the home's title until the loan is repaid. And the difference, a lot of times in a mortgage or a deed of trust, is going to be what state you're located in. So some states use mortgages, some states use deeds. So depending on where it is, but essentially it's the same instrument, it's the same vehicle with a lot of the same information. It just depends on where you are, where the deal is, and exactly what you're trying to do, depending on which one of those two documents you would use. But either way, you're always going to use them in conjunction with a promissory note. So let me get into that just a little bit more. So this is from a lending site. So it says people tend to throw around the terms deed and mortgage and use them interchangeably when they're talking about owning property. But what really is the difference? Well, there is actually a distinct difference between a deed and a mortgage. And in fact, there is one additional document that often goes unmentioned, but is very important. It's probably the most important, and that's the note. So anytime you hear us talk about like a PN or a promissory note, that's what we're talking about. That's what's going to have the terms. And I'm going to show you guys a couple sample documents today. I have a sample mortgage and a sample promissory note that we use, just so you can start getting more comfortable with these different types of documents and instruments that we use in private money lending. So I'm going to share the screen in just a minute to show you those, but let me just cover the basics here first. So what is a deed? The deed, this is the document that proves ownership of a property. It transfers ownership of the property to the grantee, also known as the buyer, okay? So it transfers ownership of the property to the buyer. That means anyone identified as the grantee in the deed is an owner of that property. The deed is recorded in the courthouse and the original is returned to the buyer a few weeks later. So that's another thing that is just said right there. The deed is recorded at the courthouse. Whenever we do lending, we always need to make sure that these legal documents, these promissory notes, these deeds, these mortgages are recorded at the courthouse, because if somebody just has it, then there's nothing enforcing it. Once it's recorded at the courthouse, then it then becomes that legal binding document that you can then foreclose on if you need to. All right. So what is a note? The note is basically an IOU between the lender and the borrower. So whoever is a borrower on the note is personally liable for paying back the debt to the lender. The note is not recorded in the courthouse, so the original note is returned to the lender upon closing. So in the deed or in the mortgage, it's going to refer to that note. That deed or mortgage gets recorded at the courthouse, and then that note is used for legal purposes later on if needed. And the note is going to have all the terms. So you've heard us talk about this in the past, or if you're new, there's very important things on every single deal that you need to work out, okay? So number one, and I'll show you this in the example, but number one, the purchase price. So, or, how much money are you lending? What's the amount of money that you're lending? What are the terms of that loan? Meaning, how is it going to be repaid back? Are you paying interest only monthly? Are you paying principal interest? Is there a schedule of payments that you're following? Is it one lump sum due at the end? Is interest being paid up front? Is, how long is that loan going to be? Is it 12 months, but it can be paid back early? What happens if you get to 12 months and it's not returned back? And then what is the interest rate? How many points are there if there's any points involved? So all that stuff gets put inside that note. So those are the terms. Like it says, basically the IOU is the promissory note of the note, okay? And then what is a mortgage? So the mortgage is the document that gives the lender a security interest in the property until the note is paid in full. If the note is not paid, then the lender can enforce its security interest by foreclosing on the property. Anyone who is on the deed of the property being used as collateral must be on the mortgage. However, just because someone is on the mortgage doesn't mean that they are personally liable for the debt. Only the person that signs the note is personally reliable for the debt. So, as a rule of thumb, if someone is on the deed, they must be on the mortgage. But just because they're on the mortgage doesn't mean they're on the note. For example, oftentimes one spouse may have bad credit, so they are not on the note. Lenders sometimes say they are not on the loan, but both spouses are on the deed. So both spouses have to be on the mortgage. It is important to recognize the difference between a deed, a note, and a mortgage because they definitely have different legal implications. All right, so that's straight from an attorney, those definitions right there with a little commentary from me. There's a couple rules that we're gonna always follow when we're creating these documents, okay? And we're gonna get into those as we review. So right now, let me share these documents with you. First off, I'm gonna share a note with you because again, the note is the promissory note that connects to the mortgage. You can see here, this is just and again, this is an example. This is a sample. We do have samples and examples available for Private Money Club members. So if you need these documents, let us know. You can log right into the site and download them. They're available. However, my little disclaimer, always have an attorney or a lawyer look at these for you. Make sure it's going to work in your state. New York State has different laws than Florida has, the way it all works. So you want to make sure whatever your state you're in or the property's located in, that you're using the correct documents. But this promissory note is pretty good. So this is a secure promissory note. So you're going to have all your information, basic information up top. The date of the promissory note, how much money is being loaned, when is it due? Again, it could be, let's say today's September 13th, 2021. The maturity date might be September 13th, 2022, even if that deal is going to be repaid in 3 months, right? So it's still going to be a longer note maturity date, but you can pay, that thing can get paid off a lot quicker, okay? But you always want to have how long it's good for. What's the interest rate? So how much is being charged, percentage rate? And where is the property located? So this will give you your basic information to know a little bit about this actual note. And then right below it, who is the borrower, who is the lender, and what is the property address? So I can look at this all right here, and I know all of the basic details of this note. And that becomes important if you have 5 private loans out to 5 different investors on 5 different deals. You can quickly take a look at this and know exactly what's going on. Okay, I see that this was on September 13th. It's coming due in 6 months. I have $120,000 out. I'm getting 12% interest. So you know exactly what to expect just by taking a quick glance at this top part right here. And then we get into the details. So on all these documents, you're going to have some legal, what I call mumble jumble, right? But it's very, very important stuff. So make sure, especially when you're new to this, read through it. Ask questions, understand it, get clarification if needed, but this is basically pretty common stuff. And then after you do your first few deals, this will go into autopilot. Like you'll take a look at these, it'll be like second nature. Yes, 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 makes sense. I like it. Okay, everything's there I need. Boom, borrower signs off on it. I got what I need. I'm ready now to send my money over to the escrow company or the attorney, and let's get this deal going. So, all right. So first off, obligation to pay. So for value received, the borrower, I'm not going to go through every line of this, but let me hit the important parts. So borrower promises to pay the lender the principal sum of, and put in the amount of money right there. It's going to be in dollar form as well as written out. Again, we always are going to double check everything. So you're going to know exactly right there how much. Lender will lend according to the attached draw schedule. So we'll put a schedule you'll see at the bottom of how those are going to get paid out. So whether it's interest only monthly, whether it's a balloon payment later on, whether there's an amortization schedule involved, that'll be what that draw schedule is. Or another way to look at it too is if you're lending money on a basis of work being completed. So maybe it's $100,000 total, but you're going to give it out $20,000 at a time. So let's say say, $100,000 loan and the house needs new kitchen. So you give the first 20,000 out. As soon as the kitchen's complete, they're ready to move on to the roof. Here's the next $20,000, ready to move on to the bathrooms. Here's the next $20,000 as each part gets inspected. So whatever that is, you're going to put all that into here. Or if it's just, we're lending you the money, you're doing the deal and you're going to pay it back, that's fine. But whatever it is, we don't make sure that all of that is included in this promissory note. So this is the loan documents. The indebtedness evidence by this note is further evidenced by a mortgage or deed of trust, which we were just talking about, whichever is applicable. This is known as the security instrument, a personal guarantee, if applicable, and such other documents as may be requested by lender in connection with making the loan, evidenced by this note. So again, all the information about the loan is in here, and this is connected to that mortgage or that deed of trust. And it all works together to protect the lender. Okay. You're going to notice on these documents, the lender doesn't even sign these. These are all for the borrower. The borrower has to maintain this contract. The borrower has to apply or has to abide by the terms that are in here, or else the lender can take over that property through foreclosure or through other means that could be within this document or the mortgage itself. All right. So you're going to have all the loan information right there. Okay. So now we have the interest. All sums from time to time owing herein shall bear interest from the date hereof at the rate of 10%, 8%, 12%, 20%, 30%, whatever the terms are that you negotiated, the lender and borrower negotiated, this is where you're going to put that interest. It's typically always going to be per annum, which is annual. Okay. So if it's 12% annual interest on $100,000, if the loan is out for 12 months, you're basically going to get $12,000 back in interest from that 100 grand. But if that loan is paid back in 6 months, you'll see in here, if it's paid back in 6 months, that's 6 months of interest, which would be $6,000 in that case, right? So you're always going to say it's an annual amount, compounding annually. Interest accruing under this note will be computed on a basis of a 360-day year, which is basically just assuming that there's equal months or equals days in each month. And that just makes the math a little bit simpler, basically saying that it's doing it on a monthly schedule as opposed to daily. Okay, the payments. This is how the loan's going to be paid. Like I was just saying, is it going to be interest only? Is it going to be blue? So in this example here, borrower shall pay monthly interest only payments equal to. So basically, you're going to calculate out how much the loan is, what's the percentage rate, and then how much those monthly interest only payments are going to be. Everything's going to be very clear and everything's going to be clarified with this document. So there's no misunderstanding or miscommunication that occurs later on. Everybody knows exactly what's due, how much is due, and what the terms are. So with the first monthly payment, interest only payment due and payable on whatever date, and subsequent payments becoming due and payable on the first day of each calendar month thereafter. So in this case, the first of each month is when the payments are due, and they're going to be paid out, whatever. So the first one will probably be a little bit less if it's prorated. All payments of any kind of nature whatsoever due from borrower to lender pursuant to the terms hereof shall be made at such address. So where those payments are getting sent to, or how those payments are getting sent to the lender, whether it's a check, whether it's a ETH transfer, whether it's a wire, that needs to be on there. The entire principal balance then unpaid, any interest accrued, percentage of the principal. So this is if there's any points. So if you had $100,000 loan and you charge 2 points, that's $2,000 up front. So that's just saying how those points and when that's going to be paid, either up front or at the end. Okay. Overdue payment charges. So this is what happens if you're late. So in this promissory note in the contract, anything over 5 days constitutes a late payment, and then it shall pay a late payment charge of $100 in late fees. Prepayment. So what would happen in the case of a prepayment? What would happen if an extension is required? Again, this is all stuff that can be negotiable and put inside this promissory note. This is just an example for this one. The security. So this note is some, like we were talking about before, and sums evidence hereby are secured by the security instrument dated same date of this note. So that's going to be that mortgage or that deed once again. Event of default. So again, more explicitly, what happens in the case of a default of the loan, what action the lender is able to take. So you can read through that. Again, I'm not going to, but it's going to open it up to where you can go after them. You can, foreclose on the property and take it back. Again, one of the nice things about private money lending is your money is secured typically in a first lien position, meaning if the borrower um, fails to pay or fails to meet the obligations, you're able to foreclose on that property. So your money is protected by that actual house, by that physical piece of property, by that piece of land, by whatever it is that's securing the money. The first lien position means you have first rights to foreclose on that property and put a lien on that property, depending on which route you go, but you have the first right over other people. So a first lien position is typically going to trump like a mechanic's lien. Or if you have the lien on a property and then they, go and they get a second loan or something like that, those people would have a second lien position. So what it would mean is you as the first lien, you have first rights to to recoup your money out of that property in the case of a lien or a foreclosure or something like that, and like that. And you're not always the first lien position. I mean, sometimes you'll be the second lien position. And if you are a second lien position, then you need to say, okay, well, who's in the first lien position? How much money am I lending? Why aren't I in the first lien position? If something was going to go wrong, am I still protected? Am I still going to be able to recoup my money? What's the property worth? How much is the loan in the first lien position over what mine is? So those are all the different little questions. Typically, though, on most of these private money deals through the private money club, at least, typically it's going to be first lien position loans that you're making. So other remedies upon default, so acceleration, things that you can do. So again, if you're in the private money club, I can send this over to you so you can look a little bit closer at it, and even mimic or use it if appropriate. Forbearance. So forbearance is a kind of a term that you've heard a lot about since COVID was a thing, right? A lot of mortgages are on forbearance. A lot of mortgage companies were offering forbearance plans. And basically what a forbearance is, let's see if it says it. Any forbearance by lender in exercising any right or remedy under this note or any loan afforded by applicable law will not be deemed to be or constitute a waiver. So it's basically saying you're able to do a forbearance. What a forbearance is the lender basically comes to an agreement that says, we're going to allow, instead of foreclosure, we're going to come to a new agreement on how we're going to handle the default on this loan, basically. So if somebody's not able to make the payments, they can enter what's called a forbearance, which now gives them a certain amount of time to pretty much renegotiate how the repayment of that money is going to come back in without going through any kind of foreclosure or legal proceedings. And that's something that, again, we heard a lot about. A lot of mortgage companies and banks out there were doing forbearance plans for people that were hurting because of COVID. Okay, so waivers, commercial purpose, usury savings clause. So you'll see there's a lot of stuff in here. Again, it's important to read through one time and understand. I'm not going to spend the time going through the entire thing, but it's a lot of kind of legal type stuff, right? That after you read through it once, you don't really need to understand too much. It's just everything to protect you as the lender is in here, basically. Payoff requests, counting of days. So exactly how those days are counted, like I was mentioning before. Sale and transfer of loan by lender. So if you ever wanted to sell the note, how that works and what happens. Assignment could be another way. Let's see. Miscellaneous. All right. And then we get down to additional acknowledgments regarding default rate and late charges. So it's just one more time saying, yes, the borrower does recognize and acknowledge what happens in the case of a default and late charges, that the rate can increase, etc. These are the schedules and exhibits. So if there's any kind of amortization schedule, if there's any kind of draw schedule, if there's anything of that nature, we would attach that to the document right here and make note of it. And then the borrower signature page. So the borrower would put their company name there, who they are, their name, their title, and sign right here. If there's partners involved, obviously they would both be there. And then happens to be, this was a promissory note that was used in New York. So we have the little additional state of New York that they require. I believe they require a notary sign this as well in the state of New York. So that's going to be a state specific thing as well. You'll just have to find out what state you're in if a notary is required for promissory notes to make them legal. It's good practice to do it anyways, especially if it's a new relationship. And again, if you have a brand, so if you're a lender and you're working with a borrower for the first time and it's a brand new relationship, you're probably going to go through a lot of these steps. You're going to, have a lawyer look everything over. You're going to read through it 10 times, make sure it's all proper. Make sure you have the notary public. As you build the relationship, odds are, if I do a deal with Chris Ruud, then I do another deal with Chris Ruud, then I do another deal with Chris Ruud. And all of a sudden we just start doing them every 2 to 3 months. As he gives me my money back, I just roll it right into the next deal. You don't really have to have an attorney, or at least I don't, do what you want to feel safe, but you don't always have to have an attorney or somebody look it over every single time. Like a lot of times it's the same promissory note. It's the same mortgage. It's the same documents. You're just changing the amounts. You're changing the address of the property, and you're basically just re-signing and redating everything and doing it over and over again. So, but when you're starting out and everything's fresh, it brings up the question then, who pays for the attorney to look this stuff over? And that's a great question. And that's all part of the terms. If I was the lender, I would require the borrower pay for the attorney fees. It's only going to cost probably $200-300 to pay an attorney to look all this stuff over and make it legal for you. But as a lender, I'm not going to pay that. The borrower needs the money. So as part of the negotiation, I'm going to lend my money at 12%, 1 point, and you pay for the legal fees to have the mortgage, the promissory note, and everything drawn up, reviewed, and approved. So that's all part of those negotiations and those terms. Okay. So that is the promissory note. I don't see any questions coming in on that one, at least not yet. So I'm going to keep on rolling right into the next document, which is going to be a mortgage. And we're going to hit this one pretty quickly, just because this is a whole lot of legal. And I think probably most everybody has bought a house in their life. So most of you have probably seen a mortgage document. This is basically the same thing. All right. So again, one more example. Again, this is a sample. This is an example. This is not one to use, but just wanted to show this as an example for these purposes. So mortgage and assignment of rents. So this mortgage and assignments of rents, known as the instrument, is made on this date. So again, you're going to want that date to match the date of the promissory note. In this case, after recording. So this means, so again, what does recording mean? As we said before, once you have the mortgage signed and ready to go, you're going to want that recorded at the courthouse. So in this case, once it's recorded at the courthouse, they're asking for this document to return to the attorney or the escrow company that is holding the loan for this property. So that way the escrow or attorney will have the mortgage and promissory note, and they'll know what to do with it. When the time comes for the property to sell, who the funds will go to, that sort of thing. So this, on this date, by whoever the company is that's borrowing the money, whoever the address, and then the mortgager. So again, the borrower, in this case is Ruud's Real Estate, to and for the benefit of, so this would be the lender. So the lender's first and last name, in this case, it was a husband and wife. So we had the first and last name of the husband and wife, their address with the 51% interest, and then their successors, transferees, and assignees as mortgagees, and the borrower with an address of having a 49% interest, known as the lender. So in this case, it was a partnership deal that they're going into with the different interests, and that can vary as well. So the borrower, in consideration of the loan and the original principal amount of $195,000 or whatever that amount might be, the loan, evidenced by that certain promissory note. So again, immediately this mortgage is referencing the promissory note, like we mentioned, dated as the date of this instrument, executed by the borrower and made payable to the order of the lender. So it's saying that whole promissory note, along with the loan documents as defined below. So the promissory note, along with this mortgage, which is everything you're going to see below, are what go together. And all renewals, extensions, modifications thereof, and the performance of the covenants and agreements of borrower contained in the loan documents, irrevocably and unconditionally mortgages, grants, assigns, remises, releases, warrants, and conveys to and for the benefit of lender, the property, including the real property located in the county, in this case of Erie, state of New York, and described in Exhibit A. So you'll see Exhibit A below, which is the attachment which basically gives the details of that property. So you know exactly what property we are talking about that is on this mortgage. To and to hold such property unto lender and lender's successors and signs forever. Borrower hereby releasing relinquishing, right? So lots of legal mumbo jumbo, like I was talking about, something that you need to read through and understand. But again, it's more just making sure that all your money is protected and everybody is on the same page. So this is just showing more information about when the payments are due, what's going on with it, you know, what's going on, uniform covenants. So these are definitions: who's the borrower, what's a business day, controlling interest, yada, yada, yada. So again, like many, many mortgages, I'm sure a lot of you have seen before, this is very, very similar. Again, everything that we do when it comes to lending money, we basically mimic what banks do. So if you're borrowing money from a bank to buy a home, you're going to have all these same documents you're going to fill out and sign. If you're borrowing money from a bank, when you're, you know, they're going to ask you when you're in the approval process, all kinds of information about you, your company, the property. That's why we have the perfect loan proposal, because us as lenders, we can look at that perfect loan proposal, and that's everything that a bank would look at as well to make an educated decision on the loan. So right from the perfect loan proposal, when you're considering lending money on a deal, right through actually protecting your money and protecting yourself on these deals, we just mimic exactly what the banks do. Basically, you as a private money lender, you're basically the bank, right? You're setting the terms, you're deciding whether you want to lend the money, you're deciding how it's going to happen, and you're protecting yourself the exact same way. So very important right there, right? You're becoming the bank. That's what the hat's all about. Become your own banker. You're educating yourself on how to do this. All right. So I could go down through this entire mortgage, but again, it's a bunch of legal stuff. We have these samples and examples available to you in the Private Money Club. So if you want to look down through it and start familiarizing yourself with everything, that's a great idea to do that. You'll notice there's places to sign along with a notary. And then we start having the exhibits down here. So you list all the exhibits as needed, and any legal information and legal descriptions. So everybody's on the same page. So let me stop the share on the mortgage. So I wanted to just go over what's called a direction to invest form. So when you have a self-directed IRA, what happens? What is, well, first off, a self-directed IRA simply is an IRA. Okay. It's an individual retirement account. It's the same as a SEP or a simple or a 401k. It's a qualified funds, qualified retirement account. There's lots of different names for them. The details of them are a little different, features and benefits, but essentially they're qualified funds. So qualified funds, what that means is this is money that you put into a brokerage account or at a custodian, and it now has certain restrictions and rules for how the money grows. From a tax standpoint, the IRS sets these rules on how the money grows. And then there's certain rules like you can't pull the money out before you're 59 and a half years old without penalty. You know, once you hit 70 and a half years old, there's required minimum distributions. With a traditional IRA, once the money goes in, it grows tax deferred, and then you pay the taxes when you pull it out in retirement. With a Roth retirement account, a Roth, the money goes in after tax, but then it grows tax free. And then when you pull the money out, you never pay taxes on the initial money or the growth or the profits ever again. So you get the tax out of the way. So there's a lot of different rules and regulations around them, but regardless, they're all retirement accounts. Okay. The difference in a retirement account at Fidelity or Morgan Stanley or a 401k at work or at your financial advisor, you know, whoever they use as their brokerage. The difference in that and a self-directed IRA is what you're able to invest in. Okay. So if you called your financial advisor right now and said, hey, I want to lend Chris Rood's company, $100,000 on a real estate flip that he's doing, your financial advisor is going to tell you you can't do that. I mean, they might explain to you, you got to use the self-directed IRA and help you with that. I highly doubt it. Actually, I challenge you. If anybody does this, if you have a financial advisor, okay, call them today and said, hey, I have a borrower. It's a professional investor. The company's name is Rood Real Estate. I want to lend $100,000 to Ruse Real Estate on a real estate flip that he's doing. That's going to pay me 12% annual returns. And I want to lend the money to him from my IRA. Okay. I don't care what kind of IRA it is. Tell them you want to lend it from your IRA and see what they say. The first person that calls their financial advisor and does that and emails me what they tell you, whether it's positive or negative, I will mail you this book. This is by an attorney out of Arizona, I believe is where Matt's from. But Matt is he's an attorney that also owns a self-directed custodial company, but this is called the Self-Directed IRA Handbook. This is a really, 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 really good book when it comes to self-directed IRAs. So I will mail this to anybody, the first person that emails me what their financial advisor says. Snaggy@chrisnaugle.com, email me, and I'll mail you that book to the first person that sends me the results. I really want to know what they say. All right. So anyways, with that being said, your financial advisor is probably going to tell you can't do that. Or if you call Fidelity or you call T. Rowe Price or whatever, they're going to tell you can't do that, right? Now, the difference is with a self-directed IRA with Horizon Trust or somebody like that is you now can invest in anything. So your advisor, your typical IRA, you can invest in the stock market, you can invest in bonds, cash, indexes, ETFs, things like that, right? With a self-directed account, you can invest in basically anything. You can buy a cow at a dairy farm with your IRA. You can do private loans. You can invest in startup companies. You can buy real estate. You can buy rental houses. You can literally almost do anything, right? So not anything. There are some rules, but almost anything, all right? So that's the biggest difference. Now, there's two different types of self-directed retirement accounts. There's a lot of different types. There's IRAs, there's SEPs, there's 401ks, there's solo Ks, but there's two different types. There's what's called a checkbook control account, and then there's a regular self-directed account. The biggest difference is if I'm going to do a loan to Roods Real Estate, for instance, and I have a checkbook control IRA, I can break out my checkbook that's connected to my IRA. I can write the check directly myself, and I can mail that directly to Roods Real Estate for the deal that I'm doing, or not directly to him, but directly to his attorney or escrow company for the deal that I'm doing, you know, along with the mortgage and the promissory note and all that stuff. But I can do it myself with a checkbook control account. Now, if you have a typical self-directed account, you're going to need to request that the custodian sends the money from your retirement account to wherever it needs to go on your behalf. And the way that you do that is through what's called a direction of investment form, a direction to invest form. So let me share exactly what that looks like with you. Okay. So again, there's a lot of, self-directed companies out there. We personally use a company called Horizon Trust Company. If you're a money school or money multiplier student, or if you're in the private money club, you can also get a deal from Horizon Trust. They're going to waive the initial setup activation fee for you. So take advantage of that. You go right to their website, horizontrust.com, or let me know and I can make an introduction for you. You can put your name in right now. Just let them know you came from us and they'll hook you up. We also have an assigned agent from Horizon. Her name is Brandy Dean, and Brandy's awesome. So I can connect you directly with Brandy as well if you would like an introduction and a little more personal attention. But anyways, once you have the account set up with Horizon Trust, if you want to do a private loan, here's what you're going to need to do. You're going to need to hover over this little thing that says forms right here. You're going to click on, if you have a solo K or an individual K, you'll use these forms. If you have an IRA, either a Roth or traditional, you're going to use these forms. So I'm going to click this right here. This pulls up. So everything that they have is online. Like, they're a very transparent company. So if you want to see what an IRA application looks like, or a Roth IRA application, or a SEP, or a simple, or an HSA, you can click on these different applications and look at them. What are their account fees? Right here. If you don't know what kind of account, hop on with Brandy and she can tell you what's best for you. Okay, but this is what's most important right here. So this is the direction of investment form, the DOI or the DTI, direction to investment. Either one is what they're known as. So you're going to click that right there. It's going to open up a PDF. And then this is the form that you're going to need to complete if the funds for the private loan are coming from your self-directed retirement account. So you can do normal processing or express. They charge a little bit more for an express. So unless you're really, really needed to rush it, just do normal processing. If you do need to express it, then who is going to pay that $50 fee? If I was the lender, I would make the borrower pay that fee. If this is something the borrower has to close immediately, then make them pay it, right? Okay. Regardless though, click on whatever you got up here. Then you're going to put in all your information. What's the name of the investment? So that could be, Rude Real Estate LLC and the address of the property. So you know what the investment name is. And then what kind of investment is it? So in this case, this is going to be a promissory note and mortgage. So once you complete this entire form, which I'll go through with you, you're going to submit this form along with a copy of the promissory note and the mortgage or security interest. So the deed of trust, the deed of mortgage, or the security agreement. So you're going to do that along with the promissory note and this DOI form. That's what you're going to submit to Horizon Trust. Horizon Trust is then going to look through the form to figure out what they're doing. In this case, they know that they're going to be lending the money on a private money loan. If you're buying a piece of real estate, you would click that one. So it just depends on what you're doing. If it's a private, it's like a startup business or something like that, you'd invest there. But whatever it is, in this case, promissory note with the supporting documents, submit that to Horizon Trust. They're going to review everything, review all the documents, make sure everything's legal, make sure it's a transaction that's legally allowed to occur. As soon as everything's good, then they will process that form for you. And then what that means is they will then transfer the money from your retirement account and send it to wherever it needs to go. Okay. And then this also tells them what to expect for the money being returned. So if the investor knows that they're going to, or if the borrower knows they're going to be paying monthly interest, then so the money's going to go from Horizon over to the borrower's escrow account. And then as the payments are made, the money's going to come from the borrower back into your retirement account funds. So you never see it. You never touch it. The money leaves your retirement account. The money goes back into your retirement account. And then the money is going to either be in there growing tax deferred, or the money's going to be in there growing tax free, depending if it is a traditional or Roth retirement account. So on the documents, this is pretty important. So on the documents, you need to make sure that everything is titled properly. Because your account is considered to be the legal owner of your investments, all assets and documents must reflect this ownership. Failure to title assets correctly may cause delays and/or tax consequences. The correct titling should be as follows. So when you're completing these documents, who's lending the money, you want to make sure you put this correctly. It's going to be Horizon Trust FBO, your name and the account type. So Horizon Trust FBO, Stephen Nagy, Roth IRA. And that's going to be the legal owner of those documents and of the loan, of the property, whatever it is. And that's what makes sure that it keeps its tax qualified status when it comes to the retirement account. So funding information and payment instructions, amount of funds requested. So how much money are you requesting be transferred from your retirement account to wherever it's going? Do you want to check? Do you want to wire the money? And then whatever the information is for that, that's up to the borrower and you and how you guys are going to work, how the money's going to go from where it needs to go to wherever. Then you're going to answer some questions. Again, this is to make sure everything's legal. So when it comes to self-directed accounts, sometimes there's limits. Like I can't lend to my dad, for instance, on a property, stuff like that. So you just got to make sure you fill this out properly. The disclosure, again, all the legal stuff, read through it, understand it, ask for clarification if you have questions. And then plain and simple, you sign it at the bottom, print your name there, put the date, submit this with all the supporting documents, and Horizon Trust will review it, they'll verify it, and they will process it for you. Okay. So that is a direction of investment form. All right. I have one question. Which company do you use for self-directed IRAs? I used Horizon Trust Company. So that's the company I was just showing, horizontrust.com. We have a great relationship with their owner and their team. I've known him for, I don't know, man. I've known him for maybe 5 or 6 years now. Chris has known him for, I think, 6 or 7 years now, a little longer than I. Actually, the owner of Horizon is how Chris and I initially met. Yeah. Okay. Is it possible to lend money from my own self-directed Roth IRA to my own business in the form of a note? Typically not, Matt. They're call Brandy if you're working with us, or just talk with a self-directed custodian, or you can even Google it. What are disqualified or what are not disallowed uh, deals when it comes to self-directed IRAs? And so again, like lending to direct family members can cause problems. Lending, like you can't do any work yourself. So as an example, like I couldn't buy a rental house with my IRA and then have my LLC that I own do the work on the property. That's not allowed. I can't even do the work myself as an individual. Everything has to be done by, it's like arm's length transactions, right? It's called arm's length. So there's a lot of that involved with it. So I don't believe you can do that, but I would just check with Brandy on lending from your IRA directly to your business. I think that's a direct self deal. It's called self dealing in that case. I believe that's considered a self dealing transaction, but just double check on that one for me. All right. And the other thing is if you are transferring money from a financial advisor, from a qualified retirement account, an old 401k, from an old job, or an existing IRA, or whatever it is, if it's a direct transfer or a direct qualified rollover, there's no penalty, there's no taxes incurred. It's just a move from one company to another company. And if you do it with Horizon, they'll actually get on the phone with you and they'll call Fidelity or they'll call your financial advisor with you to make sure that they do it the right way. And so you don't have to like get on the phone and be like, hey, I want to move my money to Horizon Trust, and then you don't really know how or what to say. Like they'll do all that for you and with you. So Horizon Trust is really good with that stuff. So let them help you, like let them do that with you just to make sure it gets done the right way. Because if it's done wrong, you can get hit with penalties and taxes. So you don't want to do that, right? So the last thing I want to leave you guys with here today is just kind of the essentials one more time. Always lend to an entity only. So you don't want to lend to an individual. You always want to lend to an entity only. You always want to send that money to an attorney or an escrow company. Okay. You're typically not going to send it directly to an individual. You're going to lend it to an attorney and it's going to, or lend it to an entity through an attorney or an escrow company. You're going to have all of the documents signed first. So that promissory note with all the terms is going to be signed and dated the same date, along with the signed mortgage or deed of trust. So everything will be signed and dated before any money gets sent every single time. I don't care if it's the first deal you do with somebody, the 100th deal you do with somebody. I don't care if it's your best friend, a stranger, or your family. Always have a contract in place. Remove the emotion from it. This is business, all right? Unless you're operating as a charity or you're doing something to make yourself feel good about yourself, this is your money. This is business, okay? So to take the emotion out of it, just every single time, without doubt, make the contract. It's good practice anyways. So let's do it that way, right? Let's make sure our money's protected. Let's make sure everybody's on the same page. And that way, there's no questions about it later on. All right. The other thing I want to mention is always, and I forgot to hit this earlier, but always make sure that you're also additional insured on these properties. So you want them, before you send the money, make sure that you're listed as additional insured on that note. And that way, if the house burns down, if a natural disaster comes, if they're in the middle of a project in South Florida or Louisiana or up in the Northeast, and they seem hurricanes hit everywhere in these days, right? So it used to be Florida only. Now they're, so if a hurricane hits and demolishes a place, like you want to make sure that your money's protected. So if that deal goes away from some cause out of anyone's hands, you want to make sure you're still protected. Your money's protected. So make sure you're the additional insured on that property. And outside of that, those are some great first steps.
All right, if you like that video, make sure you check out this video right now. And also don't forget, subscribe to my channel and don't ever forget to smash that alert button. We'll see you on the next one.